Alright, I have to mention before this review starts that this was a paid commission from the exact same guy who commissioned the first season, Queen Diclonus. From conversation with them, he also wanted me to do Die Hard 2 in the Harry Potter franchise, including both the books and movies. And to be honest, they both seem like more interesting discussions than today's video. But still, I was commissioned to do this, and I agreed. So let's get into it. So if you watch my last damn video, you know that ReBoot as the first 3D animated CGI television series is not aged well. I was born in the 2000s, so this show definitely showed its age. And on top of the fact that the first season had such formulaic writing, and all the kids shows cliches in the book, I was completely uninvested. I recall the episode where the plot was basically Enzo having a birthday party, and Megabyte, the main villain, is sour that he wasn't invited. That seems incredibly out of character, and that's because it is. It was a silly story and had stupid execution. I was assured that the show would only get better as it progressed, but waiting for a show to get good is what annoys me. I was told that Star Trek The Next Generation, for example, took until season 3 or 4 to get good. But who the hell is gonna watch 2 to 3 seasons of 40-minute episodes just to understand the context of the whole thing? I certainly didn't. It was a special treat watching one episode of the original series every night. So it's a shame that The Next Generation was vastly inferior. I guess that's a discussion for another time. I can understand if it's just the first season, and they need to introduce characters and concepts and whatnot, but if the first season is painfully mediocre or worse, then I have to ask why it was renewed for round 2. I guess Star Trek will be a discussion for another time, but even the Clone Wars was like this. And I don't even like the Clone Wars. Didn't stop Cosmonaut Variety Hour from praising the shit out of it, but at the same time telling people to skip season 1. That guy has always been a filthy casual pretending to be a hardcore Star Wars nerd. Anyways, the question for this video is ReBoot season 2 an improvement? The short answer is sort of. And the long answer will be today's extended review. So it's not like the show just completely learnt from the first season when the second one started. In fact, it takes some time before the show even gets a new intro. It's worth noting that season 2 episodes don't have as much story as season 1. So to describe episode 1, it's another episode where Megabyte tries to corrupt Mainframe. Again, the show never properly explained the terminology and significance of things. But by now, I pieced together that maybe the show takes place inside a computer, and the characters are basically living inside it. Anyways, Guardian Bob and friends think that they're getting an upgrade to Mainframe, but it turns out it's Megabyte trying to corrupt the Mainframe once again. That's the story. Yeah. Watching the episode for the second time, I can say that there's hardly any depth to it. It's just an action episode where they gotta thwart Megabyte. Even the Wikipedia article for this episode struggles to describe much. It simply states, quote, "Disguised as an upgrade, Megabyte enters Mainframe's core control chamber, he badly hurts Fong, and initiates an erase command that almost destroys the system, only to be thwarted by Bob exploiting his greed." Hexadecimal hints a surprising connection to Megabyte. I was a bit more engaged with the second season than the first, but it's worth noting that season 2 has a lot of mindless action, and the problem is the limitations of CGI of the time. Yeah, this was absolutely not the Transformers movies. The second episode focuses on this creepy bug-like guy named Lens the Reaper, searching for someone in Mainframe. He even goes as far to freeze Fong solid. So when it comes to Fong actually, I noticed that he no longer forces others to play a shitty game when in desperate situations. So that's one lesson learnt. Basically, it's revealed over the course of the episode that the guy that Lens is looking for is someone named Talon, who turns out to be a guy named Old Man Pearson's, a result of a changed identity. Pearson's, however, refuses to give himself up. So Lens goes on a manhunt, damaging every area of Mainframe until he finds what he's looking for. the show prevents him as a Codemaster, and just like everything else, fails to explain what a Codemaster actually is. They mention that it's a guild, but again, never a full explanation. So basically, as Lens tears Mainframe apart, Enzo goes over to Pearson's and tries to get him to confront Lens, but he of course refuses. And right now, we've got Enzo being the most annoying kid ever, going off at Pearson's and never shutting up. So around the latter half of the episode, Bob and Lens get sucked into a game in which it's a Western. I'm gonna call it Red Dead Redemption and be done with it. Basically, it's a train game where they have to beat the user to the next station. Shenanigans happen and the game is beat. Then a final confrontation between Lens and Pearson's, in which Lens completely changes his mind about catching him after Bob, Dot, and Enzo stand up for him, and Lens lets them all go because of honor.
What?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was at all earned. I don't remember the Codemasters having a code of honor or whatever. The third episode, titled When Games Collide, starts with, surprise, surprise, a game that the user activates. After surviving, the real plot starts with Megabyte intending to take over Mainframe's core again. I don't know about you, but I was kind of expecting something different from the last episode that featured Megabyte as the villain. Basically, a game activates with Megabyte and Bob, and shenanigans ensue. I suppose the game in this episode is essentially Jurassic Commando or something, as it has the two of them run away from a dinosaur with a machine gun on his face. Let me just say firsthand that all of the early Season 2 episodes are standalone, so they really do not matter when the show decides to have a connected story with no transition. Anyways, in the fourth episode, it literally has the same setup, with Megabyte trying to take over the core or whatever, which at this point, I'd rather watch Plankton attempt to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula than this crap. Well, basically the game initiated by the user turns into Mad Max Reboot Road. Yeah, this is a direct reference to the Mad Max films. Basically, Megabyte turns into Megatruck, and the whole episode turns into thwarting him again. Like I said before, the story doesn't really matter. I probably only watched this as a kid for mindless spectacle. So when we go to episode 5, it concerns Hexadecimal turning the entirety of Mainframe into an art museum. She even turns Megabyte into a Hawaiian jester, and freezes him in place in a portrait. She soon comes to make everything in Mainframe a portrait or something. This episode also features Mike the TV, who is like one of the only good supporting characters. Thankfully, after that point, the show turns into a connected story. It's kind of awkward that it's the latter half of Season 2, but hey, at least they're doing it now. Episode 6 in particular has the corniest premise ever. It concerns finding a friend for Enzo that is his own age. And the very episode they bring that up, an underwater game is opened by the user, and Enzo meets a game sprite named Andrea, who has a really high-pitched, screechy voice actress. It was insufferable to listen to. They try setting up this phony dilemma that she belongs to the game and not Mainframe, and she'll be erased as soon as the damn game ends, only for her to store a backup of herself on Enzo's hat thing, and now she can be a physical entity in Mainframe. As for the underwater game itself, it was pretty forgettable. Not much happened aside from Bob and Dot trying to outrun the user, as it was a race to the objective. Yeah, so I don't have a lot to say about this season. In episode 7, this is the episode that concerns nulls, which are basically what happened to Mainframe residents when they lose to the user. A strange creature shows up and infects Hexadecimal or something, and then the episode turns into Power Rangers, as the good guys assemble into a big robot to go fight the creature. And that's the episode, with Megabyte being infected by the creature. And that's the cliffhanger. Something which I didn't care for. The next episode basically has Megabyte merge with Hexadecimal to become a far more powerful combination known as Gigabyte. I presume at the time this was made, a gigabyte was a lot of storage space in a computer. Today, not so much. Anyways, Gigabyte is basically another threat the good guys have to deal with, and this is where Mouse makes her return to help Bob and friends. By this point, I completely lost track of what the hell was going on come the next episode, where it becomes a detective film noir style episode, with Mainframe residents disappearing, and Bob's got to figure out what happened to the residents, and this episode really confused me. Because at first I thought that Mouse was some sort of parasite secretly, but then stuff happens, and then she helps out the good guys who were captured break free, and again, I was confused. This all leads to the next episode, as a portal or something appears over Mainframe leading to the web, and again, the show doesn't explain the terminologies or what things are supposed to mean, so I was completely lost. And to summarize the last episode of the season, Bob and friends plus the traditional bad guys team up against a common enemy, only for Megabyte to stab Bob in the back during the battle for Mainframe, and he gets deleted or something. And the season ends with Enzo, assigned status as a guardian by Bob, left to pick up the pieces. It might sound like I was greatly oversimplifying the show, but the thing is, barely anything happened in this season. So there's no way I can talk about an extended plot. The action was way better, but the downside is that there was barely any story. And to be honest, I have completely written off this show. Just like the first season, I struggled to watch the episodes. It really isn't something that's my cup of tea. The show doesn't explain anything. We're just dropped into a scenario and expected to know what everything is. I have no idea what a Guardian is supposed to be, or a Codemaster, or why Megabyte must not be let into Mainframe's core beyond he's a virus. And the show doesn't really explain what the user is supposed to be. It's all up for theories. The season doesn't really progress from season 1 to 2, and the only thing that seems to have changed is Bob being gone. Whether he'll be gone forever is a different story, but I honestly kinda just didn't care. Sorry, it's just that this isn't to my taste. Again, I've probably completely written off the show, and I'm not very interested in watching the third season onwards. I suppose I'm very selective in what I watch, but I gave this series a go, and I don't really enjoy it. I have no idea if season 3 will be improvement enough, so I'm probably going to take yet another long break from the show. I'm JJ Plagiarisms, and until next time, what are stories but mystery boxes? Under the mountain.